Thank you for tuning in. So how many of you have heard of the late Colonel John Boyd? Not many, I suspect, so I'm going to begin with a story. Many officers came to be influenced by Boyd. Boyd had a standard stump speech for them that was quoted in his biography, Boyd, the Fighter Pilot Who Changed the Art of War. Tiger, one day you will come to a fork in the road, and you're going to have to make a decision about which direction you want to go. If you go the way you can be somebody, you will have to make compromises and you will have to turn your back on your friends. But you will be a member of the club, and you will get promoted and you will get good assignments. Or you can go the way you can do something for your country and for your Air Force and for yourself. If you decide you want to do something, you may not get promoted and you may not get the good assignments, and you certainly will not be a favorite of your superiors. But you won't have to compromise yourself. You will be true to your friends and to yourself, and your work might make a difference. To be somebody or to do something. In life, there is often a roll call. That's when you will have to make a decision. To be or to do. Which way will you go? Why is this important? In Part 4, I shared the story of Colonel Burton and his battle to reform Army weapons testing. Burton won the war and the Army fundamentally changed its policies, but there was one casualty, Burton's career. Colonel Burton, whose career had been fast-tracked since graduating the Air Force Academy, was drummed out of the Air Force and never made general. Burton chose to do and not to be. In Part 5, we will summarize solutions and recommendations to improve process automation in manufacturing plants. Some of you watching this series may come to a fork in the road of your career. How will you answer Boyd's question? Are you to be or to do? This presentation is Part 5, covering Boyd the Consultant, Gulf War to Automation. The time is today. You are in a manufacturing plant that utilizes a DCS and you want to improve your automation. So the company hires a consultant. What if that consultant was Colonel John Boyd? Recall the issues facing process automation that were identified in Part 1 of this series. Increased safety expectations, increased quality expectations, workforce turnover with a 24-hour operation, baby boom retirement, economic pressure on domestic manufacturing from the global economy, obsolete I/O. In Part 1, I asked the watchers of this series to keep in mind two questions. Can Boyd's ideas tackle these challenges? Who will be the best suited to tackle these challenges? In this final part, a third question. How would Boyd consult senior management on addressing these automation challenges? My reading of Colonel Boyd and his ideas would have him advocating for an independent automation organization to implement the following recommendations. 1. Use OODA to guide automation design and operator training. 2. Create a Top Gun operator training program. 3. Set a goal to double the productivity of the automation within 10 years. 4. Adopt maneuver warfare strategy for automation issues like I/O obsolescence. 5. Use prototypes for DCS replacement projects. 6. Use competitive bidding for I/O and DCS. These recommendations address the issues facing process automation by reducing human error, reducing operator staffing levels, and by increasing the status and authority of the operator position. To survive in a 21st century global competition environment, automation will be just as important to the profitability of a company as IT, HR, maintenance, or engineering. Typically, process automation has been a subset of one of these four. To compete, process automation needs equal status at the highest levels. These objectives are possible via a new independent automation organization on par with IT, HR, maintenance, and engineering. The first recommendation is to use OODA to guide automation design and operator training. This means establishing a new OODA standard for manufacturing plants. The first part of this recommendation is DCS design. This means adding these OODA DCS features to speed up the observe and act parts of OODA. For fighter jets, this meant bubble canopies that the F-15 and F-16 had and that the F-4 and F-111 did not have. This meant better maneuverability performance, which the F-15 and the F-16 had over the F-4 and F-111 thanks to using Boyd's EM theory. For a DCS, this means all routine valves and motors are automated. All equipment runs with state-based sequences. Query display functionality for each operator position, alarm management and high-performance HMI graphics, operator-maintained P&ID graphics, electronic log sheets, graphic-launched SOPs. The DCS may have to be replaced in order to implement these features. The second part of this first recommendation is operator training. This means improving standard OJT operator training by adding more classroom training in order to improve the orient part of OODA. This will result in a new professional operator position. To better describe this position, let's go back to France in 1940. The operators are like the infantry. Infantry is slow to attack and slow to change. Because of this, it's easy for headquarters to micromanage them. Operators are the same. They have limited authority, which slows the speed of their attack on process problems. Multiple supervisors micromanage them with thousands of SOPs, short-term production targets, and endless policy changes. The German panzer units had more firepower, mobility, more risk in terms of exposed flanks, and greater autonomy to achieve objectives. The professional operator is similar. They will be self-directed. They will have more authority, which increases the speed of their attack on process problems. They will not be just competent with automation, but will lead continuous improvement of automation sequencing. They will be independent problem solvers. They will own all SOPs. They will write new, maintain, audit, and train others on these SOPs. The best of the professional operators will be invited to become Top Gun operators. The second recommendation is to create a Top Gun operator school along the lines of the Navy's Top Gun school. Not all operators will attend this school. They will be handpicked based on merit. The focus will be classroom training. They will become experts in OODA and will apply the OODA principles across a company's various plants. The best of each graduating class will be asked to become instructors and will lead continuous improvement in the training curriculum. Those that graduate will work day shift and will have significant responsibility and authority on profit and loss. They will serve on key committees that are now typically dominated by day shift maintenance techs. The Top Gun Operator School will be independent of IT, HR, maintenance, engineering, and operations. These organizations will take direction from the operator leadership of this school. The Process Automation Organization will sponsor this school and have dotted line authority to set technical direction based on current DCS technology and plant automation needs. The third recommendation is to set a goal to double the productivity of automation within 10 years. Setting this productivity goal will face a lot of resistance. The number of staff are like bedrooms in a house. No one wants to own a single bedroom hovel. They would prefer a 20-bedroom mansion. Like with the Battle of France in 1940, more work is possible with less people. The Germans defeated a numerically superior force. This is possible because of superior tactics, training, and weapons. These include a Top Gun operator school, OODA-guided automation and training, and professional operator positions. Automation has been the driver of productivity increases throughout the history of America. Automation in the times of the Industrial Revolution took the form of machinery. Automation in the times of the Computer Revolution in the 1960s took the form of the Distributive Control System, or DCS. Automation affected both farming and manufacturing. Farming went from 70% of the workforce in 1840 to 40.2% in 1900 after the Industrial Revolution, and finally to 1.3% now. Manufacturing went from 34.4% of the workforce in 1910 to only 8.7% now. The decline in the percent of Americans in manufacturing started in the 1960s, with not just the computer revolution, but also the emergence of the global economy. Automation could not keep up and plants moved overseas. How many farms would be economically viable today without a tractor? How many factories with the same staffing today would be economically viable 20 years from now? Tariffs can slow down the decline, but a company cannot count on them. When Adam Smith advocated for free trade, the communist form of government did not exist. If it had, Adam Smith would have been a strong supporter of tariffs. For manufacturing to survive in America, we need fewer and smarter operators. We need less hard workers and more smart workers. This is the one thing all companies can control. The fourth recommendation is to use maneuver warfare strategy for process automation issues like obsolete I/O. Here again is France 1940, where automation staff is pooled together to attack a single plant, and then the next plant, and then the next. Automation is the spearhead running under a broad project scope. Senior management stays out of the way and lets the automation folks determine the quickest path to completion. Slow progress on obsolete I/O replacement prolongs obsolescence risk. This means that quality and production failures could occur in a plant that would have gotten to 100% if maneuver warfare strategy had been used. There are money restraints, but the biggest restraint is manpower. The quicker the chore of obsolete I/O replacement is complete, the quicker the more value-added automation work can be done to increase OODA performance and correspondingly productivity. The fifth recommendation is to use prototypes for process automation projects like DCS replacement. The use of prototypes is a great way to justify DCS replacement. If the same piece of equipment can run with 3 different DCS systems, then it should be very easy to see which performs better. If there is no difference between the 3 DCS systems, then there is no need to upgrade the DCS. If there is an improvement, is it solely due to the DCS, or is there an OODA gap that can be corrected? This is the data-driven type of decision-making that Boyd and the other Pentagon reformers advocated. The sixth recommendation is to use competitive bidding for process automation hardware like I/O and DCS. Competitive bidding for I/O and DCS is the easiest way to control costs. Costs are controlled by an invisible hand, according to Adam Smith, via competition. The single vendor situation maximizes the profit for that vendor and saddles the customer with poor quality and a lack of innovation. Competitive bidding advocates the horizontal integration DCS structure described earlier in this series. Boyd, the consultant, would require all DCS vendors to offer the same functionality for all I/O platforms, including those that they do not make. So now it is time to go back to part 1 of the series. How many describe their manager like Bradley? Are they going to lead this change? Would they support your effort to lead this change? Innovation requires many lines to connect the doers and protectors. There may be many Boyds and maybe even a Patton or MacArthur within an organization. They will be found at all levels below senior management. But Patton couldn't be Patton without his protector, Eisenhower. Eisenhower saved Patton after the Sicily campaign. I also added George C. Marshall, who saved Patton before the war. Marshall retired many of the older generals on the eve of America's entry into World War II, thus clearing the way for Patton's promotion. Roosevelt protected MacArthur, saving him from the Philippines defeat, and was his advocate against the largely naval war of the Pacific. Innovation in process automation will also require a few open-minded senior managers as well to identify and protect the voids in the organization that can lead the change necessary for manufacturing to survive in America in a global economy. So Boyd, the consultant, has made his 6 recommendations for change. Actually 7 recommendations if we include the call for an independent process automation organization to implement the 6 recommendations. So who in your company is going to lead this change? Recall all the faces that make up your company. Is there a Patton, a Boyd, an Eisenhower, or a Roosevelt among those faces? One thing's for sure, is that it will take more than a collection of Bradleys to lead this change. The ideas are simple. It is finding those within an organization willing to lead this change that is difficult. Truth is, we can all lead this change. Manufacturing in America is at a fork in the road. All of you working for a manufacturing company in America are also at this fork in the road. Boyd would want to know, which path will you follow? To be or to do? This concludes Part 5, the final installment of the Boyd on Automation series. I'm John Hauge. I hope you enjoyed this mixture of process automation and military history, 2 passions of mine. I thank you for your interest and your time.